So, hello everybody. Today I'm going to take a look at the Dungeons & Dragons Player's Handbook. Some call it 5.5, some call it the Eternal version, whatever. I don't even know what they call it themselves. It's the most recent installment, and apparently I don't think it's going to be the last because books make money. But they're trying to, I believe, turn this into some kind of infinity product. I didn't expect to get this. The reason why I've got it is because we went to Gamescom in Cologne and Wizards had a stand which we knew, but we didn't know what to expect. They sold books, but there were also at least one round that we saw. We didn't queue for one because, simply because of the din that was around us, it would have been impossible to actually play because you would have had to shout at people. But people were playing. And when we got to the counter, which was pretty empty, there was nobody there except for a couple of people looking at books, or, one of them or two of them buying books. We saw that they had this and we said, okay, let's get one each. And if you got this one, and it was complete retail price, €50, $49.99. So that's what you would be paying retail. You got a really nice, in my opinion, D20. My partner in crime didn't think it was too fancy, but I like it because it's big and it's easily readable and it's got a little logo on it for the 20. And then we spent the whole trip back, 4.5 hours on the train, co-reading the book. And I also brought this book with me for comparison. This is the Player's Handbook for 5th edition from 2014. I don't know which printing this is, but I thought it might be interesting to actually view them, not necessarily side by side, don't do a side by side comparison, but to take a look at basic things and compare them. So basically this book, and it is all you need really to play. Again, if you're a DM, you need the monster manual, but besides this, you don't need anything else. Unlike DSA, I'm looking at you here. It clocks in at 316 pages plus the character sheet. The character sheet is in here as well, but it's part of the book. You can't take it out. And it clocks in at 384 pages. So the page count is different, but you might say mass doesn't equal class, and of course that is true. So why is the page count bigger? Is it because the font is bigger? Well, as far as I can tell, no, the font is easily readable. They've moved away from having this kind of like brownish paper background, which makes it really difficult to read, but it's kind of like creamy white and then black printing on it. It reads really easily. We were reading this in the dim light of a train, so it was fine reading it. But it is a very different book with regard to what is in it. They have put in information from Tasha as well as, I want to say, Xanathar. So there are more spells. Some of the spells have been altered. I looked at a couple of spells that I know from my time as a cleric, because I play a cleric, and they were still the same. But there were some spells in there that I'd never seen before. For example, reincarnate. Maybe it's always been there for the druids. I can't recall it because I recall looking at the druid once, but that was a long, long time ago in 5th edition. So maybe it was already there, but I never got that far. They've also changed the way the book is structured. So you start with the usual contents, what you need, using this book, Worlds of Adventure, and then playing the game. So essentially, are you a player or a DM? Rhythm of play, an ongoing game. So basically they have something that's part and parcel, where they basically put in excerpts from a game as it is being played at the table, the back and forth, to give people some information on what this looks like. And they also say that you can see D&D games on various YouTube channels. They don't specify any, but they say that if you want to see it played, you can always go online and watch people play it. They talk about how D20 tests work, ability checks versus saving throws, what an attack roll is, advantage and disadvantage. And they really do it very, very clearly. They also give a really nice overview of what the skills are. So basically acrobatics, what the ability modifier is, dexterity, but also what example uses there are, which we thought helps to just give, especially since this is not available in any other language than English at the moment, but we also know that it's not translated into every single conceivable language. So lots of people will be using this book who are non-native speakers, and for them to have an explanation of what it means to do a sleight of hand check, you know, what this does is pick a pocket, conceal a handheld object, or perform legerdemain, you know. So basically it really helps because it gives you explanations. So they're really taking into account that some people reading this may not know what sleight of hand is. Then also how saving throws and proficiencies work. I really like a summary of the actions again, because it's quite clear. Normally you have two things you can do. You can move and you can take an action. Movement is not an action unless you decide to move one more time on your turn, in which case you convert your action into movement. And to not make things difficult, they actually say it's an action, it's called dash. Whereas when I first heard dash, I thought dash always means you move twice because you're running. That's not what this is. And they make it absolutely clear. You give yourself extra movement equal to your speed. So you can walk or move, and then you can dash, but then you can't do anything else. Unless you are a fighter who's got action surge, then you can do this one more time. Disengage, dodge, help, hide, magic, ready, search, study, utilize, and influence. You can make a charisma, deception, intimidation, performance or persuasion check, or wisdom, animal handling check to alter a creature's attitude. This is something that I've never really thought about, but of course it makes sense. People have been using it. People have been saying, well, can I try this? And then the answer was, yes, you can, and this is how you do it. But it's nice to have it listed because as soon as you confront people with rules, it's my experience from my work life, if you tell them there are certain things you can do, anything that's not on the list will usually be considered as, I can't do that. So if you just give people this information, you open up a whole plethora of ideas for them. They explain bonus actions, they explain reactions. They also explain in what order things are taken, social interaction, ability checks, role-playing. So here you've got a whole example for social interactions. I believe that this is set in, it's set in Barovia, actually. They explain the difference between active role-playing and descriptive role-playing. And again, make it absolutely clear, an ability check is not the same as a saving throw. What I really liked was this really handy travel pace chart, where they explain to you, because it's sometimes, can we get there in a day? Well, if it's 24 miles, you can do this at normal pace. Unless you get stopped, you will be able to do this. If you're slow, 18 miles. If you're fast, 30 miles. However, with each of these three paces come certain drawbacks or certain helpful things. So, for example, if you travel fast, you impose disadvantage on travelers' wisdom, perception or survival, and dexterity stealth checks because you're rushing. If you're slow, on the other hand, you get an advantage on perception or survival checks because obviously you're taking your time, you're looking at the daisies, you're smelling the flowers, you're looking at the trees, and oh, I can see footprints. And normal doesn't give you disadvantages or advantages, you're just traveling normally. What I also like, and this is I'm skipping ahead, they really explain how long rests work and how much time you can spend and how you can break it up and stuff. They also have the hazards here. burning, falling, suffocation, dehydration, malnutrition. Okay, burning and falling, okay. Dehydration, I didn't have that on my radar. But basically, I would then say, if they are being so explicit about it, I would actually use this and say, well, if you are traveling fast, then you will have to use more water because you're going to start sweating, even in Barovia. And, you know, you can use this to flesh it out, but also to make things like hunting more meaningful, you know, or to make sure that, yes, somebody has prepared create food and water, you know, that you don't just gloss over it, or that if you do want to not forage but want to buy stuff, you actually have to have the resources and somebody has to be able to sell you stuff. So if you go to like a place at the back of Beyond where there's like 5 people in a hovel, they will not be able to sell you anything simply because they don't have anything to sell, and money probably means nothing to them because they live hand to mouth. So if you do want to get food, you may have to make a decision to actually rob them. So lots of possibilities there. They also talk about combat, establishing positions, rolling initiative, taking turns. They also explain how surprise works. If a combatant is surprised by combat starting, that combatant has disadvantage on their initiative roll. Well, what we actually did was we said, if you are surprised, then the others get 1 full round in addition to, before even initiative is rolled. This, I don't know if it's like this in the old rule set, and I never saw it because the person I was traveling with also said, well, I wasn't aware of this. And between the two of us, we've got like 20 years, more than 20 years worth of experience, or 30 years even, of playing this. Because why is this better than just saying everybody else gets an additional round before you go? Because there are people who have very high dexterity, and they would have very high initiative. So to give them a disadvantage still makes it possible for them to use their innate ability and to have the chance to put it to good use. So I actually like this. Then they talk about your turn. They also talk about creatures, sizes and space, and also how you can move around other creatures and that you can maybe even move through them if they are a lot taller than you are, because you can actually just rush around between their legs. And if you are a small person, then you can also do this a lot more easily. Ranged attacks, how they work, mounted combat, how that works, damage and healing, hit points, damage rolls, critical hits. Here they actually specifically say on a 1, an attack, and that includes spells, always misses. On a 20, it always succeeds. We were debating what happens if it's, let's say, Sacred Flame. If I roll a 20 on my Sacred Flame, which has happened, does the other one still get to do the dex save? And if they pass the dex save, will it not hit? Or do we say, yes, they get to do the dex save, but only on a natural 20 will they basically then negate my damage? Or do we say, also it's a question of how fast you want combat to run. Do we say, okay, if it's a natural 20, nobody can make any moves, you can't take a reaction to prevent it, it's just, it always hits. And I'm actually inclined, as I'm saying this, to say, if somebody rolls a 20 on their attack roll, which happens not infrequently, I would still say other people can't take any reactions anymore because it is just so glorious. But it also means that an opponent who rolls a 20 and attacks a party member also gets the same benefits. There are no reactions, there are no saving throws. You just were very lucky and the other person was unlucky, depending on which side you're on. Because it also speeds up combat. You know, because then nobody says, oh, and I'm going to do a reaction, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. No, it's natural 20 means go, go, go. Natural 1 means also something needs to happen to the person who rolled the 1. It has to have more of an impact than you just miss. Having said this, I can't recall seeing botched tables in here. Okay, they explain how death works, dropping to 0 hit points, character demise, falling unconscious, death saving throws, conditions. There's also another condition which we saw later. It's called bloodied, and I know this from 4th edition, but they just say it's when you have 50% of your hit points or less, you're bloodied. But it doesn't say what bloodied actually means. So we don't know when bloodied becomes relevant. Okay, then this is another example of how it runs. And now we are, in my opinion, at the meat of the book. And that's creating a character, because it's all about the characters. Whatever we think as DMs, it's all about our story. No, it isn't. It's all about the characters of the players. And this is where you will see the greatest change. First of all, the type of characters that are now available, let's say species, they're no longer called races, has changed. In this book, in the starter book, if you like, you have Azima, which I thought was interesting, that it's an interesting choice. You've got gnomes, you've got humans, you've got elves, you've got orcs. That's new. Orcs have never been a playable race before. You've got tieflings, you've got dragonborn. I think that's all of them. That would be 7. Am I missing anyone? Let me see. Azima, dragon, dwarf, of course, elf, gnome, halfling, human, orc, tiefling, and the Goliath. Goliath is a race that I hadn't even, a species, sorry, that I hadn't even heard about. So, there are some in there that are not in the original player's handbook. Azima I only learned about the other day, because we're going to start a new campaign and the player is going to play an Azima. Goliath, like I said, I'd never heard this before. Have encountered halflings, humans, tieflings, dwarves, elves and gnomes. Dragonborn as well. There's one in our DnD campaign that we ran for several years. So, one word about the so-called half species. There are no half elves anymore. There are no half orcs anymore. There are some quotes to be found on the internet by, is his name Jeremy Crawford? Yeah, who said that they felt, and again, I cannot really verify because I cannot see where he actually said it. It's just that people say he said it, but that wizards felt that this was inherently racist to have half species. I will leave it at that, because I don't understand the reasoning behind it, because it was never reported. Maybe he never said it, and maybe he never said the whole thing at all. But I do know from other people that they really hate the idea that you can play an orc, because you cannot have an orc with daddy issues. It's not a playable race, because orcs are just evil. I disagree, but of course everybody's entitled to their own opinion. So, what they start out with is you choose a class. So don't even think about who you want to be, what species, because species will have a lot less impact on your character, as we will see later. The most important determiner of what your experience will be is the class. And of course it makes sense, because most people who play elves don't really play elves, they play humans who really like trees. So this idea of playing a different species is usually something that people find, and I include myself in this, completely overwhelming, and then they just play themselves, and basically with pointed ears. So I think it makes perfect sense to say the most important part of your character choice is the class, because that determines what you can and can't do in-game. So they have, the classes in this book are Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. They tell you what each of these like. So the Barbarian likes battle, the Fighter likes weapons, the Bard likes performing, the Paladin likes defending people or stuff, the Ranger is enjoys survival, well, don't we all, and the Rogue is really stealthy. Their primary abilities are listed, so basically for the Monk that would be Dexterity and Wisdom, for the Fighter it would be Strength or Dexterity, for the Sorcerer it would be Charisma, and for the Barbarian it would be pure Strength. And then they also tell you how complex it is to play this particular And remember, this is for starting players, how difficult it is to play this class. So they say that the fighter is low. Well, we had a debate. I'm not sure because I've never played a fighter. I'm not sure, but my partner in crime says she believes it's not actually low because you have many things to take care of. Rogue is low. And then you have things like sorcerer or warlock that are high. Druid as well. Monk high. Which I find a bit weird because I have played with a monk and I am going to play a monk, all 5th edition. And the person who was playing the monk didn't really seem to be spending a lot of time thinking about what they were doing or considering everything to be really complicated. And when I started working on my monk, I also didn't think it was terribly complicated. But, you know, this is the grading that they have given. This is now the character sheet, and it also explains to you these numbers here. So for example, 5, that's the cantrips, that's where you get all of the information that needs to go in here. Then they also have a couple of choice words about what a balanced party is, and they also say that, you know, you want to have some archetypes in there. We all know you do want somebody who can heal people. You do want somebody who can smash things. And it does help if you have somebody who can talk to people and kind of like try to make friends, not just enemies. And they say that, you know, the basically the archetypal class, the archetypal party is cleric, fighter, rogue, wizard. But they also say you can replace these. Instead of the cleric, you can either bring a bard or druid. Instead of the fighter, you can come in with a barbarian, monk, paladin, or ranger. And instead of the rogue, you can have a bard or ranger. And instead of the wizard, you can have a bard, sorcerer, or warlock. Basically, then you come to the next step, and that is the most important thing next to the class. In old 5th edition and all previous editions, your species/race gave you ability score modifiers. So, for example, elves were dexterous, more so than humans, possibly also more so than dwarves. Dwarves were probably stronger. This is no longer the truth. You can choose whatever species you like. It will not modify, and I repeat, it will not modify your attributes. You don't get a plus in strength or a minus in strength. You don't get a plus in wisdom or a minus in wisdom. It doesn't matter. And I have my thoughts on this, but before I go into them, I want to explain to you what they have replaced it with. And it's now the whole thing that is called origin. Now, origin consists of 2 things. It's the background, which has become a lot more important in this version of 5th edition, and the species. So these 2 form your origin. And the first thing you do when you choose your origin is, again, don't think about the species, think about the background. What have you experienced? What has made you who you are today? And we have the backgrounds: artisan, entertainer, farmer, wayfarer, acolyte, criminal, guard, scribe, sage, you know, you name them. They have a long list, and they're all really well described later in the book. At this stage in the book, they explain to you that certain backgrounds are related to certain abilities. So, for example, a farmer has an ability strength focus. Artisan, for example, dexterity. Acolyte, intelligence, but artisan also intelligence. The noble also has intelligence. The noble also has charisma, and the noble also has strength. So you see where they're going with this? So that is important. And as of this edition, you get 1 feat as you start out. And a background gives you a feat, which grants your characters particular capabilities. Feats are detailed in chapter 5. So that is now the main difference. Where in the past it was your species / race that gave you certain advantages or even disadvantages to your attributes. This is now gone and it's the background. And I really like that, because who is to say that there aren't any orc nobles or that there aren't any orc sages? So an orc sage, while of course when you look at an orc, they are physically imposing and they may have they may be a large creature rather than a medium creature, who knows? But it's really how they have been brought up, how they have been socialized, and what opportunities they have been given, but also what opportunities they have availed themselves of in their past life, up until the day that they decided or became an adventurer in your story. And I really like that, because it goes away from, oh, well, the dwarf is the guy that swings a hammer at an anvil next to a forge. They're strong, they're sturdy, they have a lot of constitution, they are workhorses. And I'm not going to call them mules because that's a different setting. And then you've got the elves. They have a lot of wisdom. Everybody else pales to insignificance with their wisdom in comparison to them. I believe that there are stupid elves, and I have met some. So I really like this approach a lot. I mean, we both do. So we really enjoyed this part greatly. Basically, then you go on, after you've done this, you have recorded your feat, you have recorded your proficiencies, and only then do you decide on your species. And I really like that, because it kind of says it doesn't really matter what you were born as, but what you made yourself into, or what maybe even circumstances made you into. You also then get to choose your languages, and they've included something that I thought was really cool, the common sign language. And I think this is great, because I can see, first of all, it's inclusive, and I really like that, because I know in my company, for example, people are encouraged to study sign language, ASL or DSL or ISL, as a matter of fact, because Irish Sign Language is also a thing, and I had one colleague when I was in Ireland who had been learning this. But I think it also makes perfect sense for certain, let's say, classes or backgrounds. Knowing sign language is very, very good if you have to be really stealthy and quiet. So I really like that. Then these are the standard languages: giant, gnomish, goblin, and then the rare languages like infernal, primordial, abyssal, celestial. Then you can start, basically this is the information about what, how your ability score influence your modifier. So if your ability score is a 3, then your modifier would be -4. They also tell you how to create your scores: standard array, 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, 8, random generation, roll 4d6s and record the total of the higher 3 dice. Do this 5 more times. Point cost, you have 27 and you spend them. Or, so everybody then starts with a score of 8 in every single stat, and then you can spend up to 9 points on a single stat to bring it up to 15. Or anything in between. And this is something that they have here, which I really like, and I'm going to use this because I'm going to do a video where I will start creating my monk following these rules, because we haven't started the campaign, and when we were looking at this we were like, well, maybe we should use this instead. Here you've got the standard array by class. So basically, if you're a monk, you want 12 in strength, 15 in dex, 13 in con, 10 in intelligence, 14 in wisdom, and 8 in charisma. I'm going to go with this. Okay, so then you can describe your appearance and personality, and if you don't know how to do it, you get to roll. So for example, if your strength is high, you roll a d4, and then on a 1 you're muscular, on a 2 you're sinewy, and a 4 you're direct. Low strength, on a 4 you're indirect, on a 3 you're self-conscious. Yeah, well, if you're standing next to that barbarian and you're kind of like weak as a mouse, yeah. And I really like that. I wouldn't necessarily use it myself, but I think it's going to be helpful for newer players. You choose an alignment. I did an alignment test the other day and I came out as neutral, as lawful, as neutral good. Neutral good creatures do the best they can, working within rules but not feeling bound by them. A kindly person who helps others according to their needs is probably neutral good. I'm neutral good. There's a lot of discussion around this alignment system. I was kind of in two minds about it until I started playing my cleric in Barovia, who has moved from lawful good to neutral good. Actually to lawful neutral. Lawful neutral. She's no longer good. She's neutral. She is about to set up a theocracy. Then you have personality traits. So for example, to give you an idea, if you're chaotic, then your associated trait might be boastful, impulsive, rebellious, or self-absorbed. If you're lawful, then you're cooperative, loyal, judgmental, or methodical, selfish, disinterested, laconic, and pragmatic. If you're neutral. Again, you don't really have to do it. It's a D4 roll, but I think it gives you an idea of what this actually means. And then basically they talk about how attacks work. So it's your strength modifier plus proficiency bonus is your melee attack bonus, range attacks dexterity plus proficiency, spell save DC is 8 plus your spell casting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus, spell attack is spell casting ability modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So basically just one more time. Then the hit point maximum for level 1 is detailed here. Tiers of play, we didn't really look into that much because on our travels, I will do this later, here you can get something like your trinket, and now we're looking at the character classes. They have basically added a list here of all of the classes that are in the book, but also all of the subclasses, because they have put subclasses in there. For the barbarian, storm with rage and wade into hand-to-hand combat, then follow the path of the Berserker to unleash raw violence, Wild Heart to manifest kinship with animals, World Tree to tap into cosmic vitality. I'd never heard of this before, and when I looked at it briefly, I was like, I don't want one of those in my playing group because I think that they could be really game breaking. Because again, this is for the player. Always consider that, of course, on the other side is a DM who needs to basically put challenges before this group, and I think from what I saw at first glance, for example, the World Tree is overpowered. The Zealot to rage in union with a god. We have one of those in my Barovia group. Bard performs spells that inspire and heal allies or beguile foes. Then join the College of Dance to harness agility in battle. That was interesting because they had something like footwork or fleet footwork, and some of these things were really, they were kind of really evocative, and I would definitely see how this works in a game. Glamour to weave beguiling Feywild magic, Lore to collect knowledge and magical secrets, and Valor to wield weapons with spells. We have a Bard of Valor in my DnD campaign. Cleric, they have removed at least one domain from the basic handbook. I will have to check. Life domain, light domain, trickery domain, and war domain. I think that they have left out the death domain. I'm not sure why. But considering that this is all compatible, it should work. Let's see, where's the cleric? 56. But what I like again about this is you see it at one glance here. Oh yeah, there's the nature domain that's missing. Okay, we've got life. Life domain, light domain, nature domain. Trickery is in here. Tempest domain is missing. The war domain is in here. There was never a death domain. I was just making this up. The druid channel nature magic to heal, shapeshift, and control the elements. Then join the circle of land to draw on the magic of the environment. The moon to adopt powerful animal forms. The sea to channel tides and storms. And the stars to gain powers in a starry form. Fighter, master all weapons and armor, then embody the battle master to use special combat maneuvers. Champion to strive for peak combat prowess. Eldritch Knight to learn spells to aid in combat, and Psi Warrior to augment attacks with psionic power. The Monk, dart in and out of melee with striking fast and while striking fast and hard, then become a warrior of mercy to heal or harm with a touch. Shadow to employ shadows for subterfuge. The Elements to wield elemental power. The Open Hand to master unarmed combat. Paladin, smite foes and shield allies with divine and martial might, then swear the oath of devotion to emulate the angels of justice. Glory to reach the heights of heroism. The Ancients to preserve life, joy, and nature, and vengeance to hunt down evildoers. Ranger, weave together martial prowess, nature magic, and survival skills, and then embody the Beastmaster to bond with a primal beast. Fey Wanderer to manifest fey mirth and fury. Gloomstalker to hunt foes that lurk in darkness. Hunter to protect nature with martial versatility. And then you've got the Rogue, launch deadly sneak attacks while avoiding harm through stealth, then embody the Arcane Trickster to enhance stealth with spells. Assassin to deliver ambushes and poison. Soul Knife to strike foes with psi blades. Thief to master infiltration and treasure hunting. Sorcerer, wield magic innate to your being, shaping the power to your will, then channel aberrant sorcery to use strange psionic magic. Clockwork sorcery to harness cosmic forces of order. Draconic sorcery to breathe the magic of dragons, and wild magic to unleash chaos magic. The Warlock, cast spells derived from occult knowledge, then form a pact with the Archfey Patron to teleport and wield Fey magic. Celestial Patron to heal with heavenly magic. Fiend Patron to call on sinister powers, and Great Old One Patron to delve into forbidden lore. And the Wizard, study arcane magic and master spells for every purpose, then embody the Abjurer to shield allies and banish foes. Diviner to learn the multiverse's secrets. Evoker to create explosive effects, and Illusionist to weave spells of deception. What I would say is the art is all new. I haven't seen any of these art pieces before, and they are really, I mean, even explaining how this works, becoming a barbarian, also as a level 1 character, but also multi-classing. Now they've got a separate little chapter or little thing on what it means to multi-class. What happens if I say, well, I'm going to bring in the barbarian, what do you need, but also what you gain, and so on and so forth. Then, of course, the class features, level 1 through level 20. I have a feeling, and we both share this feeling, that you're getting more at each level. Or, well, maybe not more at each level, but that each level brings something. Or maybe it's just because it's laid out better, because the layout in this book is way better than the original one. Then the different types of barbarian, the subclasses, also again with very evocative artwork. Here the bard. The spells. And this is what I was talking about, it's called dazzling footwork. So basically, while you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield, you gain the following benefits. Dance virtuoso. You have advantage on any charisma check you make that involves your dancing performance. Unarmored defense. Your base armor class equals 10 plus your dexterity and charisma modifiers. Agile strikes. When you expend the use of your bardic inspiration as part of an action, a bonus action or reaction, you can make one unarmed strike as part of that action, bonus action or reaction. It's really cool. Bardic damage. You can use dexterity instead of strength for the attack rolls of your unarmed strike. So basically, that is an interesting way of doing it. But it has to be unarmed strikes, so that's important. College of Glamour. College of Valor, College of Law. Then we've got the Cleric, and again, I mean, I know that this is going to rub certain people the wrong way. We have a really inclusive set of art pieces because you have people of, even age-wise, young to old, body-wise, all shapes and sizes, and I really like that. What I would like to do today, however, is I would like to take a look at not the classes, because there is simply too much in here. I'm going to take a look at the classes when I build my monk, because I'm going to use this book and I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a video. I'm going to take a look at the origin. The character origin components are the backgrounds and the species. And as part of the background, as I've said, you get 4 things. You get ability score modifications, a feat, a skill proficiencies, tool proficiency, and also in addition equipment. So the background descriptions are, we have the acolyte, and here I'm going to zoom in a little. We will be losing some of the artwork. Their ability scores are intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now, how does this work? Does this mean I get a +1 or a +2 on each of them? No. The way this works is a background lists 3 of your character's ability scores. Increase 1 by 2 and 1 by 1, or increase all 3 by 1. None of these increases can raise a score above 20. So we've got the acolyte. Their possible increases include intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. The feat is magic initiate cleric, and here we are unsure because in a way, since this is magic initiate cleric, we believe that this acolyte can only be taken as an origin feat by a cleric, because if you are a warrior, then that doesn't work. So some of these may be actually only available to certain classes. It does make sense though, because the description is you devote yourself to a service in a temple, either nestled in a town or secluded in a sacred grove. We've got the artisan. They get strength, dexterity, intelligence. They get the feat crafter. They get the skill proficiencies, investigation and persuasion. They have tool proficiency in any kind of artisan's tools. And this is something that I would also like to point out. The way tools are used, what your proficiencies mean, what you can do with them, is fleshed out and it's explained, and it does make a difference. If you are a healer, unlike the 5th edition previously, where it was kind of like, I'm a healer, what does that mean? Well, it means nothing. Now it does mean something. The charlatan has dexterity, constitution, charisma. Deception and sleight of hand are their tools of the trade, and as you can see here, they will be working maybe at a carnival. Once you were old enough to order an ale, you soon had a favourite stool in every tavern within 10 miles of where you were born. As you travelled the circuit from public house to watering hole, you learned to prey on unfortunates who were in the market for a comforting lie or two, perhaps a sham potion or forged ancestry records. The criminal is dexterity, constitution, and intelligence. You eked out a living in dark alleyways, cutting purses, or burglaring shops. So these are the people who are kind of like, selling snake oil, but maybe not doing harm. These are hardened criminals. For them, it's a career. Perhaps you were part of a small gang of like-minded wrongdoers who looked out for each other, or maybe you were a lone wolf fending for yourself against the local thieves guild and more fearsome lawbreakers. Your skill proficiencies are sleight of hand and stealth. Yeah, and this one comes with charisma, does make sense. Okay. We've got the entertainer. They come with strength, dexterity, and charisma. They have acrobatics and performance as their skill proficiencies, and they get the feat musician. and they choose one kind of musical instrument. You spent much of your youth following roving fairs and carnivals, performing odd jobs for musicians and acrobats in exchange for lessons. You may have learned how to walk a tightrope, how to play a lute in a distinct style, or how to recite poetry with impeccable diction. To this day, you thrive on applause and long for the stage. And as you can see, some of these lend themselves more naturally to certain classes, like entertainer and bard go together. New to me is the farmer. Their ability scores are strength, constitution, and wisdom. They get the tough feat. They have animal handling and nature and carpenter's tools as their proficiency. You grew up close to the land. Years tending animals and cultivating the earth rewarded you with patience and good health. You have a keen appreciation for nature's bounty alongside a healthy respect for nature's wrath. The guard, strength, intelligence, wisdom. Interesting. So the guards are not necessarily just the people who have prowess and hold everyone up who tries to come in, but they also need to be able to tell what's going on, understand who people are, sense motive, that kind of thing. Athletics and perception, they get a gaming set and they have different types of weaponry as equipment. Your feet ache when you remember the countless hours you spent at your post in the tower or at Gamescom. You were trained to keep one eye looking outside the wall, watching for marauders sweeping from the nearby forest, and your other eye looking inside the walls, searching for cut purses and troublemakers. So again, you also need to kind of, be able to read people. The guide has dexterity, constitution, and wisdom and gets the magic initiate druid feat. So guide would be the origin for the background for the druid. You came of age outdoors, far from settled lands. Your home was anywhere you choose to spread your bedroll. There are wonders in the wilderness, strange monsters, pristine forests and streams, overgrown ruins of great halls once trod by giants, and you learned to fend for yourself as you explored them. From time to time you guided friendly nature priests who instructed you in the fundamentals of channeling the magic of the wild. Stealth and survival and cartographer's tools. The hermit, constitution, wisdom, charisma, and they are a healer. And I really like this because they've got mountain goats. You spent your early years secluded in a hut or monastery located well beyond the outskirts of the nearest settlement. In those days, your only companions were the creatures of the forest and those who would occasionally visit to bring news of the outside world and supplies. The solitude allowed you to spend many hours pondering the mysteries of creation. You've got the merchant. I really like that one too. Constitution, intelligence, charisma. You're trying to sell stuff, you're trying to buy stuff. You were apprenticed to a trader, caravan master, or shopkeeper, learning the fundamentals of commerce. You traveled broadly and you earned a living by buying and selling the raw materials artisans need to practice their craft or finished works from such crafters. You might have transported goods from one place to another by ship, wagon, or caravan, or bought them from traveling traders and sold them in your own shop. And you have animal handling and persuasion as your proficiencies. Then we have like the noble, strength, intelligence, charisma, and they get history and persuasion as their skill proficiencies. The feat is skilled that they get. You were raised in a castle surrounded by wealth, power, and privilege. Your family of minor aristocrats ensured that you received a first-class education, some of which you appreciated and some of which you resented. Your time in the castle, especially the many hours you spent observing your family at court, also taught you a great deal about leadership. Sage, constitution, intelligence, wisdom. You get the feat magic initiate, wizard. So basically you would give this to a wizard to begin with. Their skill proficiencies are arcana and history, and the calligrapher's supplies are their tool proficiency. You spent your formative years traveling between manors and monasteries, performing various odd jobs and services in exchange for access to their libraries. You whiled away many a long evening studying books and scrolls, learning the lore of the multiverse, even the rudiments of magic, and your mind yearns for. Sailor has strength, dexterity, and wisdom. Makes sense. You do need to read, not the room, but the weather. You have Tavern Brawler as your feat, and your skill proficiencies are acrobatics and perception. I do think that makes sense, because somebody has to be up there in the crow's nest and like reading the winds. You lived as a seafarer, wind at your back and deck swaying beneath your feet. You've perched on bar stools in more ports of call than you can remember, faced mighty storms and swapped stories with folk who live beneath the waves. Scribe. Dexterity, intelligence, wisdom. Skilled is the feat. Skill, proficiency, investigation, and perception. Calligrapher's supplies are your tool proficiency, and you spend formative years in a scriptorium, a monastery dedicated to the preservation of knowledge, or a government agency where you learn to write and with a clear hand and produce finely written texts. I would say they could also be good forgers. Perhaps you scribed government documents or copied tomes of literature. You might have some skill as a writer of poetry, narrative, or scholarly research. Above all, you have a careful attention to detail, helping you avoid introducing mistakes to the documents you copy and create. Soldier has strength, dexterity, and constitution. They are savage attackers by feet, and their skill proficiencies are athletics and intimidation. They get a gaming set. You began training for war as soon as you reached adulthood and carry precious few memories of life before you took up arms. Battle is in your blood. Sometimes you catch yourself reflexively performing the basic fighting exercise you learned first. Eventually, you put the training to use on the battlefield, protecting the realm by waging war. Also, this would be somebody like a mercenary. Wayfarer. They have dexterity, wisdom, and charisma. They are lucky by feat. They have insight and stealth as skill proficiencies, and their thieves' tools are their tool proficiency. You grew up on the streets surrounded by similarly ill-fated cast-offs, a few of them friends and a few of them rivals. You slept where you could and did odd jobs for food. At times, when the hunger became unbearable, you resorted to theft. Still, you never lost your pride and never abandoned hope. Fate is not yet finished with you. So those are the backgrounds. Next, as part of the origins, you choose your species. They are described here. They have different abilities. Like, for example, the Azima. It starts out with the Azima. They are humanoid. They are between 4 and 7, or small, 2 to 4 feet tall. Their speed is 30 feet. They have special traits. Celestial resistance. You have resistance to necrotic damage and radiant damage. Dark vision. Healing hands. As a magic action, you touch a creature and roll a number of d4s equal to your proficiency bonus. The creature regains a number of hit points equal to that total roll. Lightbearer. You know the light cantrip. Charisma is your spellcasting ability for it. Celestial revelation. When you reach character level 3, you can transform as a bonus action using one of the options below. Choose the option each time for you transform. This is interesting because I would actually say, no, you can't choose between the 3 every time, but you have to make a decision up front. That's how it used to be. But the 3 options are Heavenly Wings, Inner Radiance, and Necrotic Shroud. Dragonborn. Dwarf, and here we really like the cook dwarf, and he's like a baker and he's got a cat, so he's my kind of dwarf. But again, we see, and I think this actually makes it really clear how different the dwarf species is now seen. We have a baker, which makes sense. Somebody needs to cook for those dwarves. We've got people at the anvil and the forge, which makes sense, but then you've also got people over here that do different things. This is the one gripe that I have. This is an elf, and they are green because they are a wood elf. I really have to say, I'm totally down with having black elves and white elves and purple elves, but green, one step too far. And the same for the gnomes. Here we've got the forest gnome, and they are also green. honestly, green is for treants. We've got the halflings, we've got the Goliaths. We've got the humans, and this is the one species where I have a couple of gripes with, because in the olden days, humans in 5th edition, for example, always get a +1 to every single attribute because they are versatile, and it makes up for the fact that all other species/races have more than just one increase in an ability. Of course, we don't have this anymore. So instead, they have given them resourceful, which is you gain heroic inspiration, or inspiration as it's known of old, whenever you finish a long rest. So that means that they can choose to roll a test with advantage. After every long rest, I find that problematic. And if you are like me, where you don't roll very much outside of combat, it's anyway useless because, you know, they won't be rolling that much, so they won't be using it. So you could also say it doesn't do any harm. But I think inspiration really should come out of good role playing, out of the character or the player doing something special in game at the table. It shouldn't be something that you get simply because you sleep. So we were both kind of like, And the next thing is they get versatile. Well, they get skillful, so they gain 1 proficiency in 1 skill of their choice. That's fine. But then they have versatile. You gain an origin feat of your choice. See chapter 5. And that is you gain proficiency in any combination of 3 skills or tools of your choice. So I find that because they get proficiency already in 1 skill of their choice. So here we have 1 skill. So we're just going to do a count for this. So the human gets 1 because they are human, 1 proficiency. They gain 1 origin feat, and they recommend skilled, which gives them another 3, which brings it up to 4. Then, of course, they get a background where they get 2 proficiencies to begin with. So now the human is at 6. So let's take the rogue. And the rogue gets skill proficiencies for acrobatics, athletics, deception, insight, blah, blah, blah. So if I was a human rogue, since I get 4 skills proficiencies at the beginning when I create my class, I am now proficient in 10 skills. That, in my opinion, is totally OP. Because we can look at how many skills there are. by taking a brief look at the character sheet. If I can find it. Oh look, there's no list. That's weird. Ah, okay, it's split like this. Okay, so this is no good. Is this one better? Okay, because this is the list of skills that there are. There are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. So, off the bat, the human rogue that takes skilled as the origin feat gets 10 out of 18. And what does that mean? If you are proficient, and let's say you have acrobatics, and if your dex is, let's say, a +3, and you roll acrobatics, you roll a d20, you add 3 to it. If you are skilled, you also add your proficiency bonus. So, and that goes up over time as well. So you become really OP very, very quickly. I am actually not happy about this, and I would have to nerf the human at my table, because I think this is really overpowered. I really, really don't like this. Because, for example, the orc gets adrenaline rush. You can take a dash action as a bonus action. When you do so, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. Temporary hit points go away as soon as they are consumed. Dark vision and relentless endurance. When you are reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. Once you use this trait, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. This has been there all the time. I mean, I remember this, our half-orc does that all the time. So, and then you have the human who then starts out with 10 proficiencies to begin with. No. Honestly, no. I would not allow this. I would say you can take an origin feat of your choice, but skilled is not allowed. 0. End of story. And the heroic inspiration goes. Because again, you are skillful, so you get 1 addition. So if you're a human rogue, you have 4 skills from your rogue. You get skills from your background, and then you get 1 proficiency in 1 skill of your choice. That is skillful. I would allow that. So that they have 8. 8 out of 18, less than 50%. That's fine. But I will not allow them to take an origin feat of their choice and make that skilled. It's not happening, because I find that OP. Here they've got the different types of tieflings, which I really like. And then we're looking at the feats, the whole list. It starts with ability score improvement and ends with weapon master. And here we now get to the fast crafting. So basically, what can you actually do when you are proficient with a particular type of tool? Smith's tools, mason's tools, potter's tools. What do they actually do? And crafting is fast crafting. What can you do really quickly? A tinker's tools allow you to make a bell, shovel, tinderbox. Weaver's tools, basket, rope, net, tent. And you can do this quickly. It's not something where you have to kind of like really spend a lot of time on this. It just happens. And I really like that. And the fact that it's explained, you know, that people know what can I do with this, and you don't have to kind of like negotiate every single time, can I do this? But basically, you have a mason's tools. You can build tackle. You have a leather worker's tools. You can make a pouch. Carpenter can build a ladder or a torch. Smith can make ball bearings, bucket, caltrops, grappling hooks, and iron pots. So really, or wood carver's tools. If somebody has this, they can build me as the monk a quarterstaff, and I don't have to worry about it. They just give it to me. So I really like that. And again, I have to say that the way this is presented, the way it's explained, is a lot better. Then again, you've got the weapons, you've got nice pictures of the weapons, of what they are, what they look like, what armor looks like, the tools and the proficiencies in them. And we really, both of us really enjoyed this book. Of course, the proof is, as always, in the pudding. So what we're going to do is we are going to use this version of the 5th edition rules to build our characters for our Murder of Crows campaign that we're going to be playing as D&D duets. And I'm going to build a monk. The race that I have chosen, because we did this before, we came up with our character ideas before we got this book, is not in the book. But considering that in this particular edition, species don't add any ability modifiers anymore, it won't be a problem, because I can just basically take that species, take its special things, and it's only got like 2 things, and they are not even game breaking. They are, one of them isn't fluff, the other one is mostly fluff. Nice for role playing, but not necessarily that important. And I'm just gonna build a monk using this, and you will be watching me doing this if you're interested, using these set of rules, this set of rules, and seeing how we manage to build a character using this and using the array. We're going to go with a monk standard array to see how does this character then present herself to you. So this is all from me, Dungeons & Dragons, the Player's Handbook, the most recent version. I don't know what they are calling it. Is it now D&D Beyond or D&D Forever or whatever it's called? We got it for $49.99. I believe that this would also be the retail price where you get it in your friendly local game store. Also online, this is basically the price it sells for. It's $49, so they basically converted it 1 for 1, $49.99. And it's well worth it. I don't think it will ever replace this book, because it also doesn't intend to. But for new players, I mean, this will go out of print, and then when it's gone, it's gone. And this one will become the normal version, as it were. But from what we could tell, when they said it's all compatible, it is. You will be able to use this with the Monster Manual, with Tasha, with Xanathar, with all of the modules for the 5th edition proper, and you won't be having any problems. So this is all from me. I hope you enjoyed it. I really like this book. I think it's a great offering, and it is a very comprehensive book. I haven't even looked at the spells with you guys, but it is a really good, solid book. And I would say if somebody wants to play role-playing games, and I will just be very neutral, because Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast are 2 companies that I despise from the bottom of my heart. But if somebody wants to do role-playing, and I have looked at very many different systems, and we've also featured several on my channel over the past 2 decades. 5th edition has brought about an ease of play and then a smoothness of play that lots of other systems simply don't have. And to bring people into the hobby, this is a very good book because of the system. It aids playing. So that's what I'm here to tell you. I recommend it if you have never played D&D before, if you are going to join the club of role players and you're looking for an easily accessible rule set. Take this. And that's me signing off. Talk to you soon. Bye.